Hey everyone, Ryan here and welcome to another episode of BGP Game Dev. Today's topic is Popcorn Rocket finally releasing on the Atari VCS. So, the niche console that I've been talking about in past videos was the Atari VCS. My old crew and I covered it years ago in our old Waxing Pixels podcast back when it was called the Ataribox. So when I got my fourth rejection from Nintendo back in late January 2024, shortly after my Xbox release, I was a bit down in the dumps, but the stars kind of magically aligned and recommended me this awesome video by my pal Eli from Treefall Studios saying that developers are sleeping on the Atari VCS, and I told myself, you know what? Why not?
And I can tell you this, from my experience and what I have learned, is that game developers are sleeping on the Atari VCS.
And also make sure to check out Eli's channel and Treefall Studios in the link in the description below, and his website where you can check out his games on the PC and the PS4, and also coming to Xbox soon at the time of this video. So I joined the Atari VCS Discord and I got onboarded as a developer pretty quickly after pitching my game to Atari, and I gotta say that the Atari community has been pretty welcoming towards new developers, and they are genuinely interested in new games and are very hardcore about leaderboards, which at the time of this video I was sadly not able to implement, but hopefully in a future update. And I did have a bit of a tough experience trying to get my game working on the Atari VCS, since I use Game Maker Studio, and the Atari VCS uses a Linux-based operating system called Debian, so the closest that Game Maker Studio can get to it is Ubuntu, and I couldn't use a virtual machine for Ubuntu because the virtual machine was way too slow, so I had to turn my spare laptop into a dedicated Ubuntu machine for Atari VCS testing. And the biggest problem that Game Maker Studio has with Linux-based operating systems is that the native controller code doesn't work on Debian, and Unity and Unreal have controller code that works with Linux right out of the box, so this was going to be a massive challenge for me, but luckily I gotta give a huge thanks to Lost Astronaut Studios for their Input Candy plugin, which was a massive lifesaver that got my controller code working. So make sure you check out their games in the link in the description below, especially their Appaloon series, which I enjoy. And it took me so long to release on the Atari VCS since Game Maker Studio went through several runtime updates, which borked my controls several times since I began porting Popcorn Rocket to the Atari VCS in February, and almost every new Game Maker Studio update would bork the controls and I would have to try different things, but luckily the recent updates as of July 2024 have finally stabilized both the controls and the crashes, so I was able to finally get the game released at the time of this video in July of 2024, and I gotta admit too that ever since I got started with Atari VCS development, Atari's kind of been my current retro gaming obsession. I was born in 1981, so by the time I started playing games in 1988, Atari was long gone and the NES was dominant, but the older kids in my school would say that Atari was the console right before the NES, and I've always Wikipedia'd Atari and played Atari games on emulators over the years, including E.T., and my first time actually playing an Atari 2600 was in 2002 at a convention, and I just recently 100%ed the Atari 50th collection on the Nintendo Switch, which I very highly recommend, and maybe with my Atari VCS earnings, I can finally get myself an original, hopefully AV modded Atari 2600 and the infamous Atari Jaguar, which I surprisingly never saw in stores when it was brand new when I was a kid, although I saw the Philips CDI of all consoles brand new at Sears when Sears was actually a thing and was still in business, and maybe I'll also consider getting an Atari 5200 and a 7800 too, but I know those consoles are nowhere near as iconic and good as the 2600, and I do gotta admit that it feels incredibly trippy and amazing to finally be part of the Atari legacy, and even though I don't have the nostalgia for the Atari like people older than me do, I've really grown to appreciate the simplicity of Atari's games and the legacy they started, which was extremely important in the shaping of the current video game industry, and without Atari, we wouldn't have the video game industry that we know today. And I've also been coming up with some ideas for an Atari-inspired like game, so in the distant future, maybe I'll share those ideas. So with that said, I hope you all enjoy Popcorn Rocket on the Atari VCS, and this is Ryan signing out, and later gamers, and also, I just got one super important question to ask.
Have you played Atari today?
Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to check out these other videos, and also make sure to follow me on social media and check out the official Battle Geek Plus website. Take care.